This video is for the 3,000 to 50,000 people, somewhere in that range, that are deeply interested in a direct comparison between the Dragon and my unsanctioned Sonos setup I reviewed last year. That, as a reminder, included the Sonos Arc, 2 Sonos Subs, and 2 Era 300s, so the most beastly official Sonos home theater setup as the base layer, and a separate Era 300 stereo pair up front that I multi-room grouped with the Arc system, which is not a thing you're supposed to do. I know. I'm extremely naughty. To the commenters that like to flex before watching 30 seconds of a video, I do appreciate all of your flexy comments. I am aware that this setup breaks lots of rules and can cause delays and is completely unintended by the movie audio engineers and Sonos. You can call me scum of the earth for doing this video, fair play, but not for being unaware of the potential issues. Be precise in your insults. If you're interested, you can watch my initial video on how I thought it sounded before getting my Dragon, up there somewhere. And if you have any particular confusion about how I incited an erection of the system in the Sonos app, you can watch this video. It explains everything. You can skip college. I think it's worth mentioning that Sonos has talked about 2024 being a big payoff year from big R&D investments. Amongst the rumors from Mark Gurman's Bloomberg article is a set-top box that supports Netflix and a Sonos streaming service, yada yada, and acts as a hub for Sonos speakers. Perhaps I'm being overly optimistic, but it sounds like Sonos's first-party method for getting TV audio to a full home theater pairing without necessitating a soundbar. Perhaps supporting something like a 5 Era 300 setup, which I think is more likely than what I'll be reviewing here. Nonetheless, the rumors do make a setup in this spirit perhaps a little less fantastical. As I discussed in my initial review of this Sonos experiment, it wasn't nearly as confused as it was supposed to sound. It kind of traveled on the edge of crazy and awesome, and I was able to manage that with settings and volume adjustments. I'm going to skip covering features because I've done that a bajillion times with both systems, so I'm just going to review sound. At a high level, I'm going to try to answer, if I wanted to watch a big sound action movie, which system would I plug in for the biggest dopamine hit? Which system has the strongest gravity? Let's start with Sonos. It totally works. I wasn't wrong the first time. I know the equations say it doesn't, but theory only gets you so far. The audio delay between the Arc system and the Era 300 stereo pair is minimal. If you keep the front 300's volume 10 to 15% below the main system's volume, depending on source and media, you likely won't hear a mismatch. This is critical because if this even slight delay is not manageable, the whole exercise is a non-starter. No one I've listened with has lodged a complaint, because I think you have to listen real hard to be offended. So what are the Sonos advantages? I liken this Rogue setup to a Super HT-A9 with far more body and bass and an added, let's say, ornamented center channel. I lean towards the HT-A9 as reference because of the wide front separation. It just immediately energizes my love and life level by inflating my sound balloon. And not one of those balloons a day after the party. I'm talking 5 minutes before the kids' party. Super tight. It's a major appeal of this insanely expensive unofficial setup, and a quality that the Dragon cannot match. No matter how many speakers you put on a soundbar, it just can't truly duplicate that front separation effect. As you witness your favorite action scene, you are treated to surprisingly strong directional effects. Anything whipping left or right across the screen is just much more uniform and offers a hyper-real spatial experience. It's satisfying hearing the shots and glass breaking, the electronic sound effects directly attacking me from 2 more angles, relying less on walls which can dull the effects, even if coming out of a Dragon. My bratty but persuasive child, because he's cute, hijacked my listening session by demanding Transformers 3. Shia's last go at it. I rolled my eyes, but there is no doubt that these Michael Bay movies just offer an overstuffed buffet of sound effects that, with this Sonos system, express themselves in both a stimulating and satisfying manner. Not just for the spatial reasons I outlined and the eerily convincing Atmos effects, but for the simple reason that the speakers are outputting reasonably high-quality audio for a soundbar system. The Era 300s are meant to be impressive as standalone speakers, which I don't think applies to many other soundbar surround options. This extremely wise Southern gentleman called the A9 a little wispy.
Add a woofer to each speaker to make the sound a little less wispy.
That does not apply here. The frequency range was treated with care, though the Sonos 5s do offer more mid-range fidelity than the 300s. The sound effects, in particular the main accents, sounded full. The stomps, engine revs, descending bass sweeps had a density and agility that impresses, all while somewhat inexplicably maintaining a coherence that would probably surprise you. I sense this coherence, or let's say the lack of conflict between the Arc system and the 300 stereo pair, was made possible here as the 300s were just largely mimicking the Arc with an emphasis on front sounds. Okay, maybe there's not the same level of coherence as the Dragon or A9 in particular, but it's far from some jumbled mess. The bass presence is often surprisingly meaty, with the two subs and the 300's ability to drop lower than you might predict. The Sonos Subs performance is tighter than the Dragon's, a bit more focused in their hits, though less potent. I have some sympathy for those disappointed that the Dragon subs don't live up to many component subs. They're not exceptional, but at the same time, I have very little sympathy for those that think the subs are pure trash. I enjoy my Dragon, and the vast majority of reviewers seem to be on my side on this one. A slim minority are going to walk in on the Dragon and say the subs suck. Only the most unhappy of people. With this Sonos setup, the scene never feels small, which I have noted and complained about with soundbars, such as the boiling pot scene in Blade Runner 2049, or Paul's breakfast conversation with his mother/girlfriend in Dune. Both of these scenes are still front-dominated, but not cramped. It's given 2 additional points in space to breathe. The Dragon benefits. It sounds more official and certainly more restrained and disciplined on the spatial front. The lower mids and up are noticeably higher end than Sonos. I'd argue that the majority of this gap can be explained by the Dragon's AMT tweeters that gives the top end more definition and character, and generally makes the sound more penetrating and crunchy. I'd also give it to the Dragon in dialogue intelligibility. I still think the AMT tweeters bring something near an unmatched level of clarity on that dimension in terms of outlining the voice in the right way, with hardware, not software. And I think it's worth pointing out that the Sonos system at full volume, which is loud enough to damage hearing, is approximately the experience of the Dragon at 40% volume. So yes, there is far more overhead, and in this respect, it's a far more serious system. While I lean towards the crazy Sonos system when indulging in a crazy soundtrack, for more casual listening, let's say a broadcast TV show, well, both these systems are overkill, but I would not feel the urge to overcomplicate something like The Big Bang Theory. But for high-end production series, I was happy to overcomplicate things with the Sonos system. It sounds great, and it's a fun ride. Music. I prefer Sonos. It's more sophisticated for that purpose, sounding more natural and less forced, regardless of input. Though there's one tiny caveat. This is true as long as you don't play everything together. For music to sound excellent, there needs to be a bit more precision than in cinema, so I would either mute the front stereo pair or the Arc system, depending on mood. Where the stereo pair would serve a more casual vibe, and the Arc setup a more experiential sit and enjoy the show with Atmos music kind of deal. The Dragon can put on quite the show as well, though as I've mentioned in previous reviews, I think it's best to feed it music coded like cinema via HDMI. not so much Bluetooth. Both of these systems are far above average, and I endorse them for music consumption. Medium story short, both of these systems provide a sound wallop that you're just not going to find elsewhere amongst the soundbar scene. This unofficial Sonos system did a pretty good job at hinting at what a 7-piece home theater Sonos system could sound like if Sonos would make it official. I really hope they make it happen this year. The Dragon is the most compelling traditional soundbar package, at least until Sennheiser updates the Max and offers surrounds. So which system draws me most strongly? The Sonos system. I simply wanted to spend more time with it in this comparison, as I'm just a total softie for wide front separation, and it's just an unmatched wild ride that stays on the rails mostly as long as you set the relative volume appropriately. If you're convinced that I'm an awful person for holding this opinion, please buy both systems, do a good faith assessment, and then flame this video to the ground. I welcome it. Otherwise, it probably sounds better than you're imagining. Which system should you buy? The Dragon, of course. The Sonos price somehow makes the Dragon look reasonable. You can control the whole thing with a remote, you have no audio delay issue to manage, and there are fewer components to plug in. However, I sense that this Sonos system, even if it's just 5 300s and 2 subs, would appeal to my audience more than the Dragon if Sonos could make this official. You get that huge spatial appeal, you get that humongous, you get that, unmatched. You get that humongous spatial appeal with a nice rich sound. The 300s are so special, I think you would have difficulty mimicking the spatial prowess even with a traditional component strategy. It would cost a few $100 more than the Dragon, assuming no bundle discount, but the number of uses for all the components is way higher. Sonos, keep making soundbars, but don't sleep on this opportunity. I think there's a market, in particular with your hardware and wireless technology. All right, wrapping this up. Let me know what you think, and consider helping me reach my goal of 40,000 sub-level fame by 2025 to keep my wife jealous of my hordes of masculine admirers. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.